Hi, welcome to Let's Get Tender Money Conversations That Matter. I'm your host, Marlene Elizabeth. Have you ever wondered how successful women run their businesses and lead large communities without burning out? Well, one of the thoughts that held me back for a very long time from leading more women and earning more income was the belief that there's not enough of me to go around. Well, unfortunately, this lack mentality can keep us stuck far too long, eroding our self-confidence and limiting our financial potential. Abundance is all around us, but fear can lead to tunnel vision. In today's episode, you'll meet speaker, trainer, and author Paul Levin, founder of I Deserve a Perfect Life, who shares his beautiful power mantra and power phrase for experiencing less worry and more joy, support, and income that empowered him to break free from a never enough mentality to seeing abundance all around him in business and life.
Welcome to Let's Get Tender, Money Conversations That Matter, a video podcast series with certified money coach Marlene Elizabeth, with amazing weekly guests who share their inner challenges, personal triumphs, and inside tips and strategies so you can prosper, lead, and love bravely in business and life. So get comfy and get ready to grow money wins.
I am so excited to introduce you today to Paul Levin. Welcome, Paul, to the show.
Hi, Marlene. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I am doing great. And before we get started, I just want to thank you so much for being here to share this tender money conversation with me. And I would love to share a little bit with viewers, a little bit about you. So Paul is a speaker slash trainer and a mentor and an author. And Paul shares in his introduction that throughout the dark times in his life, he's always felt a spirit, a force watching over him, assuring him that things would work out in the end. Certainly, there were times when that feeling was distant, but other times, usually the lowest points, that feeling was so reassuring. It was a concrete fact in his mind. Do you believe that that happens to you? This is a question that Paul asks his community. That's how Paul lived most of his life. But a few years ago, Paul discovered that this belief was false. Paul learned that life is something that we create moment by moment. Armed with this power, life becomes a wonderful journey. No longer was Paul a victim to the world. Paul is now and always has been the creator of his life's experience. This may sound like self-delusion or hocus pocus. Maybe it is, but all that matters to Paul is his experience of his own life. In the same way, all that matters to you is your experience in your life. Paul now sees life as an exciting and an enjoyable playground, a playground of his creation in which he gets to play every day. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. So Paul, welcome again. And tell me a little bit about what, when you share that information with your audience, when you introduce yourself, tell me a little bit about that opening, about, feeling this concrete experience of the spirit, this life force within you, and a little bit of this transition into believing that, you create your life experience. Is that one and the same type of experience that you're talking about, or are those two different types of experiences?
They are definitely two different experiences. I can vividly remember an incident when I had just returned from another country where I was sent to go to high school. And when I returned back to the United States, I was in this waiting period before I could move into the dormitory for the college I was going to. Yeah, I was not welcome in my parents' home in those days. So I was sleeping on the cot in my father's office. He was a dentist. And I remember lying there, it was late at night, And I could have been probably at one of the lowest points in my life. And yet I just had this reassuring feeling that you'll get through this one too. And whatever's on the other side will be better. And I'm telling you, that is probably the only feeling that got me through most of my life. But when I got into my 50s, and I was about to be divorced, my choice, because I knew that life shouldn't be this way. Most of my life truly sucked from before I was 5 years old. And in my 50s, I said, no, enough, no more. I will not take this anymore. Life should not be this way. Life should be happy. Life should be joyful. And after my divorce, and I and the dog moved into our house, and I set out to find that. And I did. That's the amazing thing. And it's nothing new. It's been around for centuries. I just have my perspective on it, and I'm happy and willing and wanting to show you the way. That's what a mentor does.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what, when you talk about shifting the perspective, that is all, that's really a lot of what this show is all about when we're talking about the conversation around money. And it's shifting the way we're looking at our relationship to money. And so, with that, I'd love to ask you, Paul, what is your first memory? You described this early memory you had in this experience. In terms of money, what is your first memory of money?
Yes, absolutely. I can not so vividly remember, just little bits and pieces of it. Probably 3 years old, maybe four, setting up a lemonade stand. So I was an entrepreneur from the beginning. And I remember being out there selling the lemonade that, of course, my mother made for 5 cents a cup in, I think, 5 ounce or maybe 8 ounce Dixie cups. And in those days, there was no qualms about people stopping their car and getting out of their, even on a pseudo busy road, pulling over onto the curb, getting out, buying a glass of lemonade, happily paying this little child a nickel, and getting back in their car and going on.
What a wonderful experience. I love that story. That's a great first experience with money, right? I know that when we dive into our money story, as I do with my clients as a certified money coach, we this is one of the key questions, is kind of looking back and saying, well, what is this first memory you've had of money? And sometimes it can be exciting and empowering, like what you've just shared. Other times it can be not so positive, but all of it is very important for us to be able to connect into. So that must have led you to some really maybe positive beliefs around money, that particular early childhood experience. Yes?
You would think so. However, no, because it was probably also around 4 or 5. Well, it was around 5, I guess, that a particular childhood trauma occurred that was really, as far back as I can remember now, the beginning of the rest of my life sucking. So beliefs in money totally changed into other things. And I grew up and as an adult lived most of my life with the fear that there was never enough. And even though I had the belief, because of the success that my father had reached, that I would always have a house, I would always have food, I would always have clothing for my children, but extras, there would never be enough. And let's put it this way, I believed that, and so it was so.
Right. Absolutely right. That's exactly the power of our beliefs, right? What we create is really what we believe. And so this limiting belief of there's never enough, right? And there's just never enough. What were some of the brave steps that you were able to take to overcome that belief? Even to be aware of that belief in itself. Did you first do some money work that helped you to uncover that was even something going on? 'Cause usually those are kind of invisible, right, in our life, that kind of energy. Was that a result of some money work you did?
Yes, yes, it's visible, but you know what? Consider the goldfish in the tank of water. Does the goldfish realize that they are in water? No. So when I lived my life out of this fear, I was simply being reasonable, sensible, logical, not fearful, because the mind doesn't admit to that too easily. In the years after my divorce and the dog and I moving into the house, when I set out to totally change everything and discover and find a perfect life, I did that by education, by programs, by workshops. And one of the workshops I was in at one point in the process was, and I had seen this gentleman speak probably 3 times prior, but this time I was so excited because I was on the stage for his show of hypnosis,
Wow.
stage hypnosis. All right, so somebody's about to look like a fool. Okay, and but one of the things, and his name is Mark Usick, and I'm going to put that out there because I love the man. And one of the things that he would do in his stage shows, different from anybody else, is at the end he would use the hypnosis state to give us all very, very positive, motivating, empowering suggestions. But at this point, I'd already been very familiar with his suggestions and his program. And I was actually pretty adept at hypnotizing people myself.
Hmm.
So I said, I'm going to take advantage of the energy of his suggestions to give myself my own suggestions. And I was already aware at this point in my life of the fear, but could not get beyond it.
Mhm.
And I took advantage of that state of hypnosis and the power of his positive suggestions to totally change my beliefs about money, that there's an abundance in this universe, that money is nothing more than energy, it's value. If you give value, you will get value back. Sometimes you'll get a hug back. Sometimes you'll get money back. It's simply energy. And when I began to see it as that, the universe, I was always worried about where's the next meal going to come from, even if I've got $100,000 in the bank. Well, at this point, I had about $3,000 left in the bank, and because I'm building a business here, and it was scary. I was out there on the ledge, on the edge, a 6-inch ledge, right? One little
Mhm.
push, right? Okay. So anyway, it was scary as heck. But when I saw money as simply value exchange, the universe provided
Yeah. Mm.
something from years ago where they had owed me quite a bit of money. He calls me up because you know what? I got some money. I'm going to start paying you now. And I didn't have to work for it because I worked back then. And the universe provided.
Mm.
And I don't know the chapter or verse, but think of the lilies of the field.
Mm.
Do they spin or toil or worry? No, but yet they are adorned more beautiful than you are.
Mm.
That's my paraphrase.
Oh, I love it. That's beautiful. That is beautiful. And so this opportunity to kind of go out on a limb with this person who was a hypnotist, right? And be willing to, you said, just kind of maybe look silly or but that was your brave step that you took to actually believe that this could change. And then you received that, and then you shifted. Your belief ended up shifting. Now you believe and know that money is energy. And so that's really just by shifting that belief within yourself of that there's never enough to wait, money's just energy, and there's loads of that, right? There's loads of that. Then it really kind of started shifting your whole kind of financial picture, it sounds like.
Very.
Powerful. Yeah, very powerful, Paul. And yeah, as we were saying before, these are, these beliefs that we have. They're invisible. They're not anything we can see, right? We don't understand when we're trying to achieve this financial goal, this financial dream. We're working so hard and doing everything. We seem like we're doing everything right, and yet end up feeling kind of frustrated or discouraged, and sometimes even give up, not understanding why things aren't changing. And a lot of times it's this deeper current, this place that's deeper within us that doesn't feel safe to have any change happen, right? Belief work is really powerful work. So what would you say, Paul, what is maybe a lesson that you've learned in your business or even in your personal journey that you now apply to your relationship with money? In addition to the fact that money's energy, what other kinds of experiences have you had that you apply and that empower you in your relationship to money?
Well, recall that my mission was to recreate my life, everything in it, and to have a perfect life. Because truly, I deserve one. So do you. And so with that being the mission, it wasn't so much that I did things to build the business or have more money. I did things to have a perfect life. Now, a piece of that will be money. One of the hugest things, and I'm not sure if that's a word, but I just made it one.
But it's a fun word, right?
It's a fun word. One of the hugest things that I learned in the process, and it is my mantra today, it is my moment by moment mantra, and that is give value first. Even if it's just the person in the car next to me, I'll wave, I'll smile, I'll roll down the window and say, hey, do you like rock and roll, and blast my radio? Okay? It's Billy Joel. You have to get into this song with me. So give value first, and the universe will give value back to you. You can stop worrying about where it will come from.
Mm.
And that's, go ahead, take away.
Well, no, I was just going to say right there what you just said about understanding the value that we bring into the world. I find that myself as an entrepreneur, and even when I'm coaching other new, inspiring entrepreneurs in business, that, in terms of being able to charge for your services, by being able to look at our services and that we're charging, for our services and putting the value on that is much different type of a perspective than feeling like this whole thing of charging what I'm worth. Well, we can't really charge what we're worth because we're priceless, right? So that would just be, there's no number to that. But when you just separate it, and can you just look at the value that you're creating for somebody, there's value to that. Yeah. And like you said, sometimes you get a value exchange of money, and other times you get a hug, or you get maybe another gift in exchange, a barter kind of situation. But focusing on that value exchange, I think that is such a beautiful, beautiful lesson that you carry forth into your relationship with money, because it calls to mind the question of, well, what value do I bring to this situation? And then that kind of leads to the conversation of learning about your gifts and your strengths, where you're really great, what you're really great at, and to use your word, what do you suck at, right? What do we suck at, and what are we really great at, right? Really being honest and clear about that is very important for happiness, I think, in life, and also even in business, right?
I'll tell you, to that point of identifying and knowing the things you suck at, just recently I had a conversation with one of my mentors, and he was suggesting that I look at government grants, that I start researching government grants for income opportunities. And I said, oh my God, I got on the mailing list. I've looked at a couple of them. They make no sense to me. I don't understand how to read them. The last thing I want to do is learn how to respond to them. He goes, great. Then just find somebody who likes that and bring them on board. And if you don't have, and you might be thinking, well, I don't have money to pay anybody. I don't have any money to pay anybody right now either. But you know what? I posted a position on Indeed.com for a sales and marketing associate. And I got a half a dozen responses already. And in fact, I'm signing a contract with a young man on Saturday. He's on my team now. He knows sales and marketing. So you can do this. It's just find a way. Whatever the issue is, you just find a way.
I love it. Well, congratulations on that. And I love that creativity, right, that we bring in. And I feel that that's a really important topic too when we're talking about money, is that whole part of creativity that when we bring that into our life, that really starts to shift our dynamic with money as well. I know that that's been very true. That specific point has been very true in my own relationship to money, that the higher that I have tapped back into my creativity that I had when I was a child, that through certain circumstances kind of started disappearing. But the more that I raised that level up, the more that money also started to appear as well. Right. So there's definitely a correlation there. I love that point, Paul. And what would you say, Paul, that, as we kind of wrap up our time together here, what would you say that you've learned to be true, a lesson you've learned to be true about money that you wish you would have already known when you first started your business? Something that, helps somebody who may be starting out themselves right now. What is something you wish that you had already known that could, be helpful?
Truthfully, the biggest thing there is the realization that I've most recently had, which is the abundance of money. It would have been lovely to have grown up in a family where my father, in a sense, he was an entrepreneur, but he was a dentist. He was a professional. And professionals are really not huge business people. So it'd be lovely to have grown up in a family with an amazing entrepreneurial family and business and all of that. And I didn't. So what? I got to go out there and learn it on my own and get help. We create everybody around us to help us in our goals. So yeah, go out there and make it happen.
Mm-hmm. And realizing that there's an abundance, right? And there's a difference. I love that you bring that point up as well, that there's a difference between being an entrepreneur versus being a small business owner. And a lot of times people think that that's one and the same, but they're actually two different ways of being engaged in business. And as I like to kind of clarify that, when you're an entrepreneur, you're focused on changing the world and making a difference, right? But when you're a small business owner, you're focused on the bottom line. You're focused on the bottom line of running that business. And both are important and both need each other, actually. Both types of people in business need each other to learn from each other to grow. But when you don't, like you said, when you don't have other fellow entrepreneurs around you, yes, connecting with a community of people, because we're out there. We are out there. And this is part of what this show is about too, is being able to connect entrepreneurs with each other to support each other, because this is a great time to be moving into entrepreneurship. So Paul, I thank you so much for being here today and sharing, your insights, powerful, beautiful insights with our viewers. And how can people find you to connect with you more about your work that you do?
Yes, thank you for that question. Well, the first place I would invite people to look would be my website, which would be ideserveaperfectlife.com, because you do, and you can have one. Now, the second way to,
Oh, yep.
whatever. The second way to reach me would be by telephone if it becomes urgent, and that number would be 813-841-5583. I'm partial to email, Paul at ideserveaperfectlife.com. What I do, and we've touched on it throughout the entire call here, is I get to those beliefs. I help you find the beliefs that are holding you back. And you know what? When we find them, they're so amazingly easy to change because they're not true. Once you see them, you recognize them for the fallacy that they are. And when we change them, everything changes. Reality changes.
I love it. Thank you so much, Paul. Thank you so much. And again, people can see you or visit you at your website, ideserveaperfectlife.com, and also reach out to you by phone, which is fantastic as well. Again, thank you so much, Paul, for being here.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it immensely.
I didn't know anything about limiting beliefs when I was 28 years old, but I do remember an experience that left me shaking my head, feeling confused about the rules of a religious center that I had traveled to visit. I had cheerfully walked into their office one morning and I asked about enrolling into their training program to become a spiritual director. It took me a moment to register the secretary's reply. She said, "I'm sorry, you're too young." Well, I shared that I was 28 and I was a religious education graduate student studying at Boston College, a really well-respected Catholic school. I told her that I already had 1 year of spiritual direction training under my belt from a distinguished facility across the country called the Mercy Center. And I had experienced at least a few years of spiritual direction myself. So I respectfully asked if they would consider making an exception. The secretary gently explained that I could apply on my 35th birthday after I gained more life experience. Well, at that time, I was 7 years away from that age. So I left disappointed, but mostly confused because I knew that the belief that I was too young, it just didn't fit the reality of my experience. I felt drawn to spirituality since my late teens, and this desire ultimately led me to follow a path into professional church ministry, retreat work, and co-hosting a Catholic television program on the Trinity Broadcast Network, which was the largest Christian broadcast network that aired into 110 million homes across the country at that time. So perhaps the secretary was right about one thing that day. Without life experience, I left accepting the rule rather than challenging it. The rules that we live by are worth examining, and this is especially important when it comes to our beliefs around money and the rules that we live by when it comes to our relationship with money. What do you believe about money? What is a limiting belief anyway? Well, a limiting belief is something that you believe to be true about money or about your relationship to money. And it's usually at a subconscious level that you're not even aware of. And it holds you back from unfolding your authentic, untapped financial potential. Limiting money beliefs may keep you blind to opportunities and prevent you from sharing your natural strengths and talents. They often can keep you stuck and prevent you from achieving your financial dreams no matter how hard you try. There are many different types of self-limiting money beliefs. Some of the common ones that I hear are the following. It's not safe to have money. Money is the root of all evil. It's not spiritual to have money. You have to work very, very hard to have money. Rich people are greedy and dishonest. There's a limit to how much I can earn. I can only make good money working for someone else. I have enough to get by. It's too difficult to get out of debt. If I make more money than my family, they won't love me. And there's so many more limiting money beliefs. Do you recognize any of these in your money story? Becoming aware of a self-limiting belief is the first step that gives you the power to change it. In my personal money story, I've learned that it is possible to be spiritual and wealthy. I've learned that personal finance is not rocket science. And at the core, finances are a spiritual matter. In fact, in my book, Money Wings, I cover 7 spiritual wisdom lessons that I've learned and are ones that I teach in my Money Wings Day workshop to help female entrepreneurs thrive in their businesses. If you'd like to learn more, head over to the website amazon.com, where Money Wings is available in both digital Kindle and print versions. It's exciting to witness so many heart-centered women beginning to rewrite their stories and step into their financial potential while powerfully sharing the goodness that they're meant to share in this world. If you'd like to schedule a complimentary breakthrough session with me, you can schedule it by setting an appointment at www.meetwithmarlene.com. I look forward to hearing from you, and thank you so much for tuning in. See you again soon.